When I try to go live, it says streaming's not available now. No, this one worked. What's going on? Okay. Man, that was scary. So I got another strike. It's ruined. What's up, guys? Well, let me get both of the streams live. I got a tale to tell. So I was thinking a little bit about intuitive intelligence tonight, how important it is, and how undervalued it is in our society. Partly because people that have not actually really done the work to develop it often claim to have it, or they may have an experience once or twice, and so they think they're psychic. And I think real psychic ability has as much to do with having knowledge of the real world and balancing these things. And it's not that intuition doesn't sometimes border on the supernatural, and in the case of the qero here, it may very well. There's pretty good evidence for it. I mean, their prophecy is pretty convincing, and it seems to be happening. So we'll get to that story, but basically I'm saying that, this is something that the only thing we can do is take better responsibility for our own development and balance our spiritual efforts with our intellectual, balance the pentagram, people. Okay, so the qero, case in point, a few weeks ago now, maybe just a week ago, I ran into a girl that I had mentioned that I was looking for ancient, people that had ancient knowledge of San Pedro practices that hadn't been contaminated by the outside world. And when I ran into her again, she mentioned the, what's going on in the Gnostic life, she mentioned the qero, Nacion Qero, the Qero Nation. And it didn't ring a bell when she mentioned it. So I did a little bit of research, and I realized that they're the same tribe that my father had told me this story about when I was a kid, that always had stuck with me. And I remember thinking that I really hoped one day I could go there and meet them. And so when I discovered that following this breadcrumb trail of ancient solar traditions, and how that's sort of dovetailing with a lot of science, especially in the area of consciousness research, it was really wild. And so the tale that my father told me is, there was this tribe in South America, or there is, I guess he saw a documentary or something. When they saw the conquistadors coming, they went way up into the Andes. Because I guess they're shaman. I mean, they're not technically shaman. They're more like mystics, the paqos. But at any rate, when they saw the conquistadors coming, their spiritual leaders told them, let's go way up into the mountains and do not come down again until we see the signs that this prophecy is being fulfilled. And I don't think it's the same as the eagle and the condor prophecy, but they are connected. And the qero certainly are aware of this other prophecy that has to do with, and this is from the Incan times, by the way. So there was no people of the eagle in North America, unless they knew about the Native Americans up there. I guess that's possible, but that's what they were referencing. But basically, they went way up into the mountains, and until they started to see the signs of let me look at my notes and see exactly what those signs are. Okay, so first, underneath a monastery near Cusco in Peru, an earthquake had split the ground open, revealing an Incan temple of gold. There was gold everywhere. And that was one of the signs of the Mosak, prophecy of the coming time, which is basically an end of the modern world and a reemergence of the old ways. It is a profoundly positive event, according to this prophecy. And so, the qero are believed to be the last of the Incas, and there are about 600 of them, all above 14,000 feet. And so they made this prophecy 500 years ago that the Europeans and the white people would become too powerful, and they would go insane, and they would be on the edge of destroying the world. Roughly 1990 would have been the time. And so the earthquake fulfilled the first part, and then the rest of it was that the high mountain lagoons have dried up, which is something that's starting to happen. The condor would nearly have completely disappeared, which has also happened. And then the discovery of the Golden Temple. Also, a version I heard of this was that all these things that started to happen, and then they saw an airplane for the first time, and they were like, okay, it's time to go down to the outsiders and tell them, that they're going to destroy the world, and tell them that this prophecy suggests that there's a new higher consciousness that's going to emerge after this period of chaos. But there are no guarantees of anything. So that's one of the things I like about this prophecy, that they kind of acknowledge that this is the opportunity we're being presented with. And all of this sounds remarkably like what I've been saying on this channel ever since I've basically been thinking about this since I was a little kid, that something like this seemed to be on the verge of happening. Which I also feel was largely intuitive. It wasn't, I think I was so young when I started thinking about the emergence of like this new consciousness, and it wasn't probably necessarily really based on any kind of influence. I sought the things that suggested evidence because I had this intuitive feeling so young. And so let's see what other relevant stuff there is here about they call it the Mune, and loving compassion will be the guiding force of this great gathering of the peoples, the eagle and the condor. North America will supply, oh shit. I haven't even had the microphone in my hand, have I? Oh no, could you guys not hear me the whole time? That's terrible. Well, I don't see any complaints about the volume, so I'm going to assume you guys have been able to hear me. I can't believe I did that I didn't have my mic. I guess for so long I had one that you could sit in the thing and then just talk. I just didn't think about it. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me better now. So I said the believe that the Mune, love and compassion, Munai, Quechua pronunciation. I'm used to the Ecuadorian version. So, great guiding force of this great gathering of the peoples. And incredibly, in Albert Pike's Masonic tome that's here by my elbow that we have been studying for years now on my Patreon, which you guys should all go join if you're not already members, the guiding force of the great gathering of the people, love and compassion, he says that there is a revolution prepared for by the ages whose aim is to ameliorate mankind from despotism, slavery, religion, superstition, bigotry, and that the two great motors of this revolution will be love and truth. So it's, worded pretty similarly. And so these new caretakers of the earth will come from the West. And it's interesting because it says North America will supply the physical strength or body, and that sounds like numbers. Europe will supply the head. I'm not really sure why that would be true, but we'll see. And the heart will be supplied by South America, which to me sounds like a reference to plant medicine helping people to become more what they are essentially supposed to be. And so the last Pachacuti is the great changes that occur. This is almost like Aleister Crowley's aeons, or the Mayan. The Mayan had the similar kind of thing. Lots of cultures do. For the last 500 years, they've been waiting for the next Pachacuti, when a new order would emerge out of the chaos. For the past 5 centuries, they preserved their sacred knowledge, and finally, in recent years, the signs were fulfilled that the great time of change was at hand. The prophecies are extremely optimistic, and that they refer to the end of time as we know it, the death of a way of thinking and a way of being, the end of a way of relating to nature and the earth. In the coming years, the Incas expect us to emerge into a golden age. And by the way, these qero are suspected to be like the last surviving, direct Incas. They're Incan. The qero say it's not true, that the Incans respected their sovereignty and never tried to absorb them into their empire. But, the jury's out on that. What is certain, though, is that they say they have preserved their knowledge. Anthropologists, the government of Peru even protects them because of this, completely and totally. The traditions and the knowledge are completely unsoiled, unchanged. So for me to have, been invited to go and take initiation and learn all this, especially considering that it's so consistent with what I was, where I'm coming from anyways. And I literally came here looking for these ancient solar secrets and trying to find people that haven't been contaminated by the industry. And so not only, the qero you can actually go and visit at the lower altitudes, but what I'm gathering is that the village where I would be headed to is off limits unless you are with one of them when you enter or you have written permission. So, pretty excited about that. Although I'm going to have to put it off, and I'll explain that in a minute. But let's get through the rest of the. Okay, and the shamanic elders, or the paqo, actually speak about a tear in the fabric of time itself. So, when we have these ancient cultures talking about things like tears in space-time, it kind of perks your ears up, like, how did that happen? This presents an opportunity for us to describe ourselves as not as who we have been in the past, but as who we are becoming. Pachacuti also refers to a great Incan leader who lived in the 1300s. He is said to have been the builder of Machu Picchu and architect of an empire the size of the U.S. For the Incas, Pachacuti is a spiritual prototype, a master, a luminous one who stepped outside of time. He was a messiah, but not in the Christian sense of the only Son of God beyond the reach of humanity. Rather, he is viewed as a symbol and promise of who we all might become. He embodies the Übermensch of Nietzsche. The essence of the prophecies of the Pachacuti. Pacha means earth or time, so Pachamama is like Earth Mother. And Kuti means to set things right, Pachacuti. His name also means transformer of the earth. This is a very alchemical process. The prophecies of the Pachacuti are known throughout the Andes. There are those who believe the prophecies refer to the return of the leader Pachacuti to defeat those who took the Incas' land. But according to some anthropologists, the return of Pachacuti is not an individual. It's happening on the collective level. And a lot of people say this about the Christ, And what most of those people, I don't even think, realize is that there was never even any original intent that people should view Jesus as an individual. Christ comes from Christos, which is a spiritual fire. So that's absolutely true, that what's actually being described in the Bible is a relationship with light and the sun and our knowledge of where our consciousness comes from and to create a dialogue with that in our hearts so that we can be purified by the fire of hell, the Helios, the sun. You know, I mean, the fact that people take this stuff literally is just mind-numbing to me. But yeah, that's also really interesting. And in fact, in the mystery tradition of scientific illuminism, one of the things you do is look for these consistencies in disparate systems. And it's interesting to me that we basically have this offshoot of the Inca who were sun worshippers that seemed to understand why they were worshiping the sun. And the Christians who don't know that they're worshiping the sun, but definitely are. And this concept is so similar. And no, it's not because they've been influenced by Christianity. They've managed to keep themselves separate from all of that. So the qero have served as the caretakers of the rites and prophecies of their Inca ancestors. The prophecies are of no use unless one has the keys. The rites of passage, the star rites, or magick carpi, the rites of the time to come, are crucial to the practical growth described in the prophecies. Following the despachos, ritualistic offerings of medicine bundles, at the ceremony in New York City, shamans administered the magick carpi to the individuals present, transmitting the energies originating with the ancestors of their lineage. The transmission of the magick carpi is the ceremony, carpi is the ceremony representing the end of one's relationship to time. It is a process of the heart. This process of becoming is considered more important than the prophecies themselves. The carpi plant the seed of plant the seed of knowledge, the seed of pachakuti in the luminous body of the recipient. It is up to each person to water and tend the seed so it can grow and blossom. The rites are a transmission of potential. One must then make oneself available to destiny. The carpis connect the person to an ancient lineage of knowledge and power that cannot be accessed by the individual. It can only be summoned by a tribe. Ultimately, the power can provide the impetus for one to leap into the body of an Inca, a luminous one. The person is connected directly to the stars. That little bit of it, you know, I mean, that's what I'm here for. This whole idea that the sun and our consciousness, that there's this relationship and that you can actually have dialogues with it in some way at some times. Pretty wild that this is actually happening. Ultimately, the power can provide the impetus for one to leap into the body of an Inca, luminous one. That person is connected directly to the stars, the Incan sun of cosmology. The qero believe that the doorways between the worlds are opening again, holes in time that we can step through and beyond, where we can explore our human capacities and discover new ones. Regaining our luminous nature is a possibility today for all who dare to take the leap. The Indian shaman says, follow your own footsteps, learn from the rivers, the trees, and the rocks. Honor the earth mother and the great spirit. Honor yourself and all of creation. Look with the eyes of your soul and engage the essential is the teaching of the qero. So, really interesting stuff. I feel like I skipped. I mean, it's just wild, you know, the authenticity of this particular prophecy is one of the most striking that I've ever heard. And if you consider that the prophecy of Thoth in the book of Asclepius, which Hancock erroneously attributes to Egypt when it was actually obviously Greek. I don't know how he could possibly make an error that obvious, but that's what happened. I saw the video. But anyways, that prophecy is nearly identical to this one. And, you know, there are several more that are, yeah, it is like Freemasonry, but for the Incas. It's true. Can you describe more about the scientific illuminism cross-cultural connections? I've dedicated my last year to finding synthetic thought lines in various myths and cultures. Yeah, actually, I should, because another thread of this whole experience that has maybe been the most like Twilight Zone, Stranger Things kind of vibe of anything I've experienced, really. I had an experience where I apparently received information about celestial bodies in the Sirius star system, and about 10 days after that, there was a paper published that confirmed. And in order for me to have guessed that, I mean, I don't know any astrophysics, Not only that, but this being that was presented to me during this trip, several people had seen it hovering around me. Three people that didn't even know each other. Only when I play guitar, which is interesting. But previous to this ayahuasca experience, I had seen it in my vision, my mind's eye, like 10 years earlier, and then these people kept mentioning this many years later, all in the space of like 1 week or 2 weeks maybe. And so, I didn't put it together that it was this thing that I visualized. And then, the ayahuasca Pachamama was like, remember this? And suddenly it was in front of me, and she explained all this stuff. And so, the Hopi have the blue star prophecy, right? The Freemasons have a blue star in the lodge that represents Sirius. And both the Hopi and the Freemasons identify other keepers of the secret knowledge with secret handshakes. That is almost too much to like write off, That's really just something else. But it gets weirder. Shortly after that, and let's not forget the Dogon in Africa that had star charts that we were only able to recently map out because of Hubble, among other things. And it's always Sirius. Why is it always Sirius? And then also I've discovered that the Kofan, who are a tribe in Ecuador, also claim to communicate with beings from Sirius when they drink ayahuasca. And then also the connection with the Eleusinian mysteries, which the Freemasonry and other mystery schools descend from. People think that they used ergot-based beer, but I think that that's probably not true for a couple of pretty compelling reasons. One being that experimentation with ergot would cause people to die terrible deaths. You get something like gangrene and kind of go insane, and your like limbs are rotting off as you're dying, and it just, I don't see experimenting with that in the first place. So the fact that Freemasons still to this day are buried with leaves from DMT-containing acacia, and that acacia in Syrian rue, which would be nearly chemically identical to ayahuasca, are found in all of the places associated with the mystery lineage, the Middle East and Greece. So, there is that connection as well, although it's kind of tentative. But it is certain, at the very least, that the mystery schools did employ psychedelics, as did these other groups that established this apparent telepathic link with Sirius. So, there's a lot of that going on there, but I guess a little bit more specifically to address his question about the connection between sort of Incan cosmologies and belief systems and the connection with scientific illuminism. Scientific illuminism is definitely it's a process of mediating your metaphysical flights of fancy with scientific knowledge, basically. And doing this in such a way that they enhance and complement each other. And the result of it is that you see things as they are and not as you have been engineered to perceive them, or You know what I mean? That's the overall basic protocol and mission of the whole thing. And so there's a lot of similarities with things that are associated with the mysteries, right? This whole thing about light and consciousness, the sun god, and that whole thing, you know, it's all over the planet. And even though the details, you know, from Egypt to Babylonia, Syria, the Aztecs, the Incas, there were variations in the mythologies and whatnot, but the fundamental secrets that lie behind it have to do with consciousness and light. And in alchemy, you have the alchemical gold, which is the philosopher's stone. And there are weird little details that suggest that these people knew things that they shouldn't know. Like, for example, in alchemy, it's actually mercury that is transmuted into gold. The lead serves a purpose, but it's not necessarily the lead that's the agent of transformation. And in fact, in this Masonic book here, which is written in 1851, he describes using an electrical charge to knock a proton off of mercury, although he doesn't use that language, but you know, describes using an electrical charge to transmute mercury into gold. And it has been done in laboratories in the last 15 years with an electric charge, knocking a particle of or a proton, particle off of the mercury, and there's gold, and it costs like $1 trillion to make an ounce this way, but it does happen, it does work. So not only that, but Mercury is right next to the sun, who is the messenger of God, basically, the psychopomp, similar in some ways to Prometheus, bringing divine knowledge to mankind, the mediator between the earth and the sun, or the sun and the Holy Ghost. You could put it that way too. And Mercury's right next to the sun, which is the symbol of. So it's the metal Mercury is one proton away from being gold, and then Mercury is right next to the sun. And these mythologies also, in different cultures, kind of represent the same thing. There's some really weird details going in there. Like the Aztecs, some of their subgroups actually created motes of mercury around their, coffins or wherever they sarcophagus. I don't know what the proper term would be. And that was in order to help the deceased to make it to the other world, which is exactly what Mercury Thoth does as a psychopomp. So the mythical Mercury has the same function as the actual metal Mercury in Mexico, and they also did it in Egypt. Again, all of these groups acknowledge the divinity of the sun and the importance of light and all of that kind of thing. So, and also in this Masonic tome here, Albert Pike writes, man had the truth and wandering in the darkness found error. And that, when you start really looking at all of these ancient cultures and these sun-worshipping cults, I guess, to label it something, it starts to appear that we did actually almost universally all over the planet have this knowledge that's now resurfacing because of, Penrose and Hameroff's orc theory and the work of a few other people. So that's another tremendous aspect of this, that, we're having these solar storms, and this ancient knowledge is emerging even further and further into the light and being corroborated by science. And, the sun's having all kinds of crazy solar flares at the same time. It's just like, you asked me to elucidate some of the connections here, and it's like there's so much going on right now with all this stuff that it's like almost unbelievable. And I know I've mentioned the trip to the Temple of the Sun that I made a little while back, and we were talking to a shaman there who they have meteorites. Some people dispute whether they're meteorites or not. They certainly look like meteorites to me. They are magnetic like they're supposed to be. I don't see how they could not be meteorites. I actually have, where are they? I could show you guys. Hey, Enrica, can you hear me? Can you bring me some of those not wakas, you know, the chumpy stones? All right, my assistant will bring them forthwith. So anyways, the meteors, he said, were used in rituals because they concentrated the energy of Inti, which would mean that they made it a point of density in the electromagnetic field. So there's another correlation that, you know. Oh, you didn't have to bring them all. Swap them. I just wanted like one, but thank you. Okay, yeah, so these, hold on. And then they have different numbers of points on them. You know, and I mean, I was there thinking like, that when I first saw the meteors, I thought, I bet that's why they chose the spot. There's all of these, and then I looked into whether or not it's actually true that meteors can affect electromagnetic fields, and the answer is yes, in all kinds of ways that science can't even explain. It depends on the type of meteor, but they do have their own fields, and they interact and shape fields, and so, you know, this stuff is just steamrolling in terms of the revelations, and again, this is super consistent with every one of these prophecies, that this like understanding of how the universe works and how we need to relate to it in order to continue to survive and prosper and not kill each other is, you know, it's necessary for a higher level of awareness to emerge in order to catalyze a change like that. And the only way that I could see it happening is that the darkness of religion, superstition, all the fear of the unknown, these things were eradicated by this actual knowledge of how our consciousness works, where we come from, why we're here. I believe these questions are all not only answerable, but obvious if you haven't been subjected to indoctrination your whole life. And on top of all that, you know, there's an opinion amongst a lot of people that the emergence of modernity was a huge mistake. And I don't think that at all. I think that everything that happens is necessary or it wouldn't happen. And for us to be able to recontextualize a lot of this ancient wisdom and in such a way that it's supported by science, that is where the power is at. And another interesting element of this situation is that it's not really going to be possible for science and the matrix, you know, mind, that ontological position where the basic protocol, or, you know, its modus operandi almost is to reduce the ineffable to the level of the mundane, you know, and that is what has destroyed humanity. You know, we have seen from psychedelics and other access points to the transcendental state, what happens. Depression is alleviated by experience of the transcendental. Creativity is tremendously enhanced. Genius can even be catalyzed in people of normal IQs. It's not common, but it has been documented at Ivy League schools during tests on psychedelics. So like 2 out of 1,000 people or something actually raised their IQ permanently after a moderately high LSD trip. It could be that the LSD just like melted blocks, you know, their perception of themselves, that they thought they were stupid, and then the LSD just showed them they weren't. So who knows if it's actually an IQ increase, but you guys see where I'm going with this. The whole reason that our society has become such a toxic, you know, puddle of dissonance is that we have when confronted with the ineffable, reduced it to the level of the mundane. That's the whole thing that the culture does, you know. And then you end up with this like vapid, lost, pointless. Like, how can you have any morals or standards when you think that your existence is completely pointless and you are being socially engineered to be empty and vapid and dependent on pharmaceuticals and all, you know what I mean. You guys get it. You've been to this planet before, I'm sure. So you see what I'm saying? It won't be long before they can no longer deny the reality of this stuff. You know, I've experienced undeniable, indisputable telepathy on ayahuasca so many times with such absolute precision. You know, even psilocybin mushrooms, actually, one of the most impressive standout times, my girlfriend was a mile away, and I was going through something, and when she found me later, she knew that I was like, I didn't have my shirt, and I needed to get the keys, and she had the keys, and she knew I ran into this Burmese mountain dog, and a tear streamed down my face, and every single word of the conversation that went through my head, you know. So the point of this presentation is that, you know, these things do catalyze this kind of capacity of consciousness that our science has not been able to confirm. We do have the tools to confirm it. In fact, it was done in the 1963 by Gene Masters in Houston, two PhD medical doctors that were studying ayahuasca and other psychedelics. But the thing is, with all of these themes from all of these different prophecies, from all of these sun-worshipping, you know, ancient peoples, to converge like this, and it's obviously true. You know, it could be a coincidence, you know, and it's probably also true that every single time there is a major transition, actually it's not probably true, it absolutely has to be true, that there is a period of disorder and chaos, and then there is some new emergent thing. You know, the chaos creates the space and loosens up the cogs so that they can reconfigure themselves in a new way. It's just a physical necessity, you know, of the energy involved. So you could say that this is just as much from observation over thousands of years as it is any kind of precognition. I don't really see that it matters, because that's clearly the position we're in. And the fact that, you know, not only is the chaos here, but we have an awakening and an emergent consciousness that's obviously real, and scientific answers to questions that have plagued humanity that also are congruent with the ideas presented in these ancient systems. You know what I mean? This merger is real, and it's important. It's the most important thing that probably has ever happened to humanity, and we're in the middle of it. So do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider joining my Patreon, because I am demonetized. And so if you appreciate this content, my camera cut out? I can see it moving. Oh, it did, huh? Shit. Hold on, I can probably fix that. Oh, I know why it happened, actually. God damn it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't notice because, where is the stupid program? There you go. What's up, guys? Long time no see. Glad to be back. So I'm trying to remember where we were going with this exactly. But yeah, basically that was a very long-winded answer to this person's question about how these things converge. They do converge all over the place. And it's not so much that the methods of the mysteries and scientific illuminism are similar, except for the use of psychedelics and other access points to transcendental states. It's more that the ultimate conclusions that the adepts of these ancient Andean people and, you know, Egyptians and whoever else had this knowledge, they end up with the same conclusions basically about light, and gold becomes something important in a way that has nothing to do with money. The Incas, you know, they're like that. One of the first parts of the fulfillments of the prophecy was that the earthquake opened up. There's caverns all underneath the Cusco, and there supposedly are still elongated skulls in there, and gold and stuff. And some places are, you know, impossible to reach or very difficult. And when you walk along the sidewalks from the edge of the city, you can see where they've sealed up all the entrances, so you can't get in there. But every now and then there's an earthquake, and these caverns are miles long. And by the way, there's vitrified stone throughout the cavern system as much as a mile in. Vitrified stone, I think you have to heat to like 3,800 degrees Fahrenheit in order to cause, it's a cellular change that transmutes the granite or clay or whatever it is into glass, basically. Gives it a glass surface. But how was this heat source generated a mile underground, you know? But anyways, the temple was full of gold. That was one of the conditions or the description in the prophecy that this temple full of gold would be discovered, and that was one of the three main indicators that this Pachacudi had officially begun. And so what I'm getting at, though, is that the Inca had no monetary value for gold. You couldn't buy stuff with it. They just, because it was a symbol of divinity, they called it the sweat of Inti, which is the sun. And it's interesting because gold does come from stars. Most of the gold in the universe was created when two neutrino stars or super neutrino stars collide, and they're like so dense. They can be like 115 kilometers wide and weigh as much as 10 suns or something insane like that. A spoonful of it weighs as much as Kilimanjaro. And when they collide, gold just erupts everywhere, which is a really, really interesting thing when you consider that all of these cultures associated gold with stars. And, you know, this whole thing of light and consciousness and the revelations, this has been one of my main pursuits since, I was 31 when I really started to understand, I think. And so 13 years, I guess, I've been looking into this thing of consciousness and the sun and how magnetism is, you know, how that's important. It also it gives me an opportunity to kind of demonstrate how Hermetic thinking can reveal these kind of hidden details of the universe, because if it's true that as these stones, the purpose of them, these meteorite stones, is to concentrate the field in order to create a dense point of the energy, and that's what gives something an organized or sophisticated form of consciousness, right? Our brains are loaded with magnetite, which absolutely makes sense, and if this is all correct. And then if you look up the definition of energy, there's all the scientific definition is the ability to do work. There's no substance that is energy. It's not like the physical identity of it, it's not a thing. It's just I heard one physicist describe it as a particle is really just a tendency or a function in the field. Like it means something specific is happening there, but there's nothing really there doing it. So just as the smallest functioning thing that you can't necessarily say that it thinks, although some rudimentary consciousness has been detected in electrons because they know when they're being watched, and that is You know, the whole thing about the observer effect and consciousness collapsing the wave and all that, that's New Age malarkey that has never been confirmed. There are very few physicists that believe that. And the leading theory now is that it is related to consciousness, but it's because the collapse of the wave is what creates consciousness, which is pretty interesting because it suggests that consciousness is fundamental. And what was the other bit? Oh yeah, and then Penrose, who that's his contribution to this consciousness theory, or part of it. His partner Hammeroff is an anesthesiologist, and he recently showed that anesthetic gas shuts off consciousness at the level of the electron by reversing the spin of the electron. And I probably don't have to get into the implications of that, So anyways, there's a lot of evidence that this, that the field, and so getting off track. At the smallest level, a particle is a dense point, like it's sometimes described by physicists as if you took a blanket and then put a rubber band around it. It's a dense, bunched up little spot in the field with a function, and has even exhibited some fundamental level of awareness. So then on the next level, you have humans who create a point of density in the field with all of the magnetite in their brain. And then if this is all true, when you scale this up to something the size of the sun, then logically that would be, a star would be an extraordinarily dense point, and therefore like super conscious. That's the, so as above, so below, as above, so below. There's like 3 levels of it right there, where it's manifestations of the same thing in a slightly different format. And in Kabbalistic terms, you would say Keter is in Malkut, Malkut is in Keter, but after another fashion, which is wild because Keter is light, basically, and it descends through the tree of life and crystallizes in matter after this process of development. And matter is light in a standing wave, and they definitely did not know that when they created the tree of life, which actually isn't Jewish. It's Babylonian, Syrian, those mysteries, at least that old. And then it returns, right? Just like when we die, we return to the source, according to a lot of people's beliefs. Light does the same thing. And another example of as above, so below would be the fact that when you look at the macrocosm of light descending and crystallizing into matter and then reverting and returning, it suggests that that's what happens when we die. If this whole way of thinking is correct, and it increasingly seems certain that these adepts knew what they were talking about. Let me check the chat. Modernity? The modern era is what I meant to say there. All the entities that people see on DMT could be just aspects of your subconscious personified. I think that could be where people got this idea of higher dimensional entities. Yeah, yeah, I sure do. But there's no way of knowing really for certain. I saw a video of Dennis McKenna, Terrence McKenna's brother, talking about how he has seen no evidence that these things are anything but manifestations of Jungian archetypes in another format. However, I have been given information of very high degree of specificity on numerous occasions by these entities, and they've turned out to be true unfailingly. In fact, no DMT entity or ayahuasca spirit has ever told me to hurt myself or anything else, or anyone else, or do anything stupid, or told me anything that didn't turn out to be true, down to like certain person sending me a certain amount of money 5 minutes after the DMT entity tells me that, the phone beeps, and I had not asked. There were no distress signals. There was no reason for it. The person had never done it before. So I tend to think that they're not real, and they're also not real. They're not real in the way that the IRS is real. And I doubt that they are like sitting around doing, when you see DMT entities, they're often just doing absurdly weird stuff, that there's absolutely no point in it. They're just lifting a trash can lid and this cat with one eye pops out and sticks its tongue at you and drops back down. You know what I mean? Like whatever kind of weird, random shit like that. Sometimes they're doing things that make sense, but a lot of times they're just tripping. And it's like, what for what? Like what is this? What does this thing think it's doing if it's like objectively real? What the hell does it think it's doing? And so the conclusion that I've come to is that in a similar way to consciousness being generated by points of density in the electromagnetic field, these entities are given coherence by the vector of our consciousness with the field. I think they probably exist as a sort of dispersed, like unorganized generality or something in the field. And then when we interface with the field in that way, then it gives them coherence to an extent. So I don't know that they actually, exist objectively. I don't see any reason for them to. But then again, I don't know how I got all that information from them that turned out to be accurate so many times. It's not about being the pinnacle of being. I mean, in the Nefer Raft or whatever, I got nothing to do with it. It's not arrogant. It's just, objective observation, and you're just asserting they're real, but there's absolutely no reason for you to make that assertion. There's no evidence that they're real. I'm not saying that they absolutely aren't, but that kind of thinking to me is extremely dangerous and destructive, where you just feel like you can assert something for no reason just because you think it's true. That's not how you come to truth and wisdom. It's not. In fact, that is far more arrogant than the people that are humble enough to be unsure about their beliefs. So I think that comment was actually completely ass backwards. Well, thank you, Empress. I actually have to go, though, because I promised my family we would finish watching Metallica's Some Kind of Monster. I don't know how we ended up on this, but we did. And so thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I'm sure I'm trailing off without finishing an idea or something, but for that I apologize. And I never explained that I just don't have time right now to go see the qero. So because we have the retreat coming up, and the first person is coming here to work alone with me, so that's only like a few days, and then we're starting. And so I can't do it because it's not just a day visit. It's going to be a long ordeal, and it's also very difficult to get up there, I guess. And I'm a little bit nervous even about going to 19,000 feet and trying to function up there. But coca leaves actually oxygenate the blood, and the vasoconstriction also helps somehow. So I don't know, a little bit nervous about bringing my whole family up there too, because my son can't really chew coca leaves. I mean, they do, Andean people do, and actually there was a 122-year-old Peruvian man that recently was asked what his secret to longevity was, and he said that he'd been chewing coca leaves all day, every day since he was 5 years old, and that's why he's still alive. So I don't really know. I can't imagine giving a toddler coca. Maybe without activator, it would still do it. I'll have to look into that and see. That's funny. I didn't even see that was a question already in the chat. Thoth the Atlantean. Okay, I'm just checking the chat just to see if... By the way, you guys, do hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. My tendency to attack both presidential candidates and I think the fact that I make it so obviously true that it's undeniable, the fact that it's all a farce and that there's a plan and that, elections are not real and these candidates are both conspiring, even though that seems, that's the whole point. It's always been that way. Anyways, the fact that I do such a good job of proving it, I think is really insulting to people. So it's cost me quite a few patrons, and that's fine because, you can't handle the truth. We don't need you in our community. That's not what this community is about. It's not about me trying to get as much money as I can by catering to people's prejudice and political bullshit and whatever else. I don't care really. I do care because I like to thrive. So long story short, consider becoming a patron, or there are options for PayPal, Zelle, and all that stuff in the chat. What can I do in my dreams to raise my consciousness? I have a lot of lucid dreams. Well, in case you're still in the chat, a couple of things that I can offer that are helpful for that. One is the Tattva concentration meditation, where you visualize, say, a red square with a blue circle inside, and you do not let the image flicker even. If it does, you start over with your count. And so the goal is to be able to hold an image firmly in the mind for 30 seconds without it even flickering. It's incredibly difficult. It's not until you try to pin the mind down that you find out how determined it is to escape your control. And then at night, you can do the normal, mindfulness meditation, breath, focusing on the breath. And that's helpful to maintain continuity of awareness through lucid dreams. And then also nuciferine, Blue Lotus, that can be extremely effective. Brumansia actually causes prophetical lucid dreams. I've experienced it, but that's kind of dangerous. And I'm trying to think, plants. I made a whole video, two series of videos on lucid dreaming. So maybe go check those out. And it's the plants and meditation will aid you in those things. Another really great thing to do that all initiates of the Western mysteries and most schools are required to do is to keep a dream journal. Every day, the second you wake up, the first thing you do is write down. A lot of people do all the relevant astrological information and all this stuff. But at least to record them immediately. And so what this creates is a dialogue with the subconscious, and becoming aware and conscious is really fundamentally a matter of increasing the level of control and dialogue you have with the subconscious mind. That's the whole game, really, is to be less of an automaton. And the dream journal helps with that. Not only does it help with that, but if you do have prophetical dreams, it will give you certainty and not faith. If you drink and dance all night with faith, you will awaken with a corpse in your arms. And if you drink and dance all night with doubt, you will find her a virgin in the morning. She makes a wonderful mistress, but a nagging wife. Point being that, you have the certainty when you look back through these dreams, and you'll see that there is a conceptual continuity that is running through all of this stuff, and you'll never pick up on it unless you document your dreams. And I think that this reiteration of this dialogue with your subconscious every morning, and it solidifies it, and it makes you more aware of it, and it draws these things up and out, and you do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by summoning these shadows and confronting them or something. That's Jung said something like that. I'm definitely paraphrasing badly, but the psychedelic experience is similar but different.
by one people to another people, but still the description on entities is very similar. Yeah, well, the similarity of entities, I think, is something that people give too much credit to in terms of their validity, like whether they're real or not, objectively, because it doesn't mean anything, really. We all have minds. We all have the same, like, archetypal figures, and personally, for me, like mantises, for example, I don't really see how it is that a mantis being that has a predilection for taking the top of people's heads off and giving them brain surgery, for example, how that's like an archetype. When Dennis McKenna said that he didn't see any evidence that it was anything but archetypes, I do not see how that is like a classical archetype, or how, it's really odd. It's really, really odd. And he also said something that I know is not true in that video. He said that, because my brother made this idea of self-transforming machine elves so prevalent in people's mind, now everyone sees them. Well, there's a problem with that, I'm afraid. And the problem is that I once gave the first DMT experience to a girlfriend of mine, and when she came back, she was describing these like elf things with these Rubik's cubes made of light, and they were telling her, like, look, this is how we make dimensions. And she had never read or heard of Terence McKenna, and she described that particular instance from his book exactly as he did. So, like I said, I'm not convinced either way, because a subjective experience cannot ever be validated as objectively true, And I hate the faith-based religions with an absolute passion, and that kind of belief that you can just think stuff and that's okay, even if you have no way of really verifying this anything more than opinion, This is why I pretty much don't believe anything. I maintain as much neutrality as possible, because, you look around the world and you see Muslims and Christians and all sorts of people that believe things absolutely that can't all be right. And so, that to say I believe something just because I believe it is just complete arrogance and delusion. Like, faith is not actually a commendable attribute. It's a failure and a weakness, in my opinion. You have to have a protocol for divining the truth, and it's far more involved and sophisticated than 99% of like modern mystics and spiritual seekers, New Agey people. The lack of respect for the office of the shaman and the mystic and the magician in our culture has led people to believe that they can just have a spiritual thought or drink ayahuasca once and suddenly they're a mystic. No, you're going to lose your mind. You're going to just become delusional. You have to spend your entire lifetime learning about a multitude of different subjects and disciplines and train yourself in critical thinking. And all of these things that people have been taught to think are antithetical to spiritual development, because there are certain powers that would rather have you be a muddle-headed mystic with wind whistling between your ears than actually connect with the real power that comes from the proper approach to these things, which is almost entirely absent in our culture. It really is. And then also the fact that rather than going into these experiences with ayahuasca and indigenous people and learning their viewpoints and whatnot, so many people just feel it's like you're obligated out of respect to just accept their interpretations of the spirits and their cosmology and everything, and that's completely stupid. I'm not saying their beliefs are stupid. I'm saying for people from outside of the culture to do that is totally missing the point. It's completely and totally missing the point. Your culture actually does have value. Modern thinking is really important. Science is amazing, and the integration of these worldviews is the job of someone who finds themselves blessed with the opportunity to participate in this syncretism, in the synthesis of new forms of knowledge. So it's really unfortunate from my point of view, at least, to see people there's just adapting ontologies and worldviews without understanding that that's not necessary, it's not the point, and it's extremely counterproductive. We want new forms of consciousness to emerge from integration and syncretism and synthesis, I think. I mean, who knows? Well, thank you, Empress. I think that's going to do it because I really do want to have some popcorn and watch the formerly mighty Metallica whine like a bunch of old rich grandmothers about the difficulties of being billionaires or whatever. I don't know why my partner decided, she's a lot younger and I've never heard her listen to a Metallica song, but suddenly she's become really fascinated with, still without listening to them. It's just like something has just caught her curiosity, which is a bit of a surprise for me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. Please consider becoming a patron or supporting the channel. One of the options in the chat. Because I need a budget to go out into the middle of nowhere in Peru and make videos. And, this qero thing is really, really feels significant. And it's also a really lucky turn of events that they don't traditionally use money. I don't know where they're at with it now. If they still, I think the highest villages probably don't. But their economic system is bartering, but also just like gifting. So it's a really unique opportunity for me to continue putting this crazy puzzle together, to interact with a shamanic tradition where there is no, ancient tradition where there is no profit motive to cloud and contaminate the interaction. So, increíble. And I will see you guys later. Did I already ask you to hit the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron or contributing to Cash App or whatever. There's a bunch of options. I will see you guys again probably on Saturday. For sure on Saturday, I am going to drink San Pedro again. I didn't follow through with it last time because I didn't drink enough. And the problem with San Pedro, I'm working with a new cactus. Taking too much can be a huge mistake because it causes blackouts at really high doses. Sometimes, so you have to be careful, and it also takes so long to start working, and it lasts so long. I can't afford to risk being awake overnight, So I only have one shot, really. So I'll double down on Saturday, and part of the reason I'm doing it is the hopes that you have to get the dose exactly right. But it gives you an ability to focus with your full concentration on like 8 or 10 different windows. So I noticed this once when I actually drank too much before a gig, and not too much where I couldn't play, in fact, the opposite, but more than I intended. And I realized that I could focus entirely on improvising with my fret hand, experimenting with rhythm with my strumming hand, and I could focus on every nuance of my vibrato, pitch, like my mouth, every single, the breathing, like all of it equally in all these different windows. Like I could see it in my mind's eye. And, it was remarkably useful to get that superpower from San Pedro. So I'm going to drink a good strong dose and stream for probably a lot of hours. So if I don't see you tomorrow, I probably won't. I'll see you guys on Saturday. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to finish my reaction to Professor Dave reacting to Billy Carson. After this, actually, there's one more thing I have to say, and that is that for those of you that don't realize that Terrence Howard is a blithering idiot, there's nothing about it that is like innovative. He's not a misunderstood genius. He's actually gotten caught lying about his patents. They're all abandoned. Like, it's just, it really is the dumbest thing I've witnessed in my entire life. It really is, that people are thinking he's a genius. Not just dumb, but like frightening as well. Here's the thing. If he was right about a single part of it, a single thing, we would have technologies that we use every day that would not work. That's it. That's done. Dead in the water right there. That's it. Mathematical computations that would not work. Like, there are so many, there is proof that nothing he says makes any sense all around you every day. You know, and the fact that people don't know these things is a bit alarming to me, because if you just learn a little bit and you see how the things he's disputing are foundational elements of functional parts of our world, that if you changed any part of them, all of this shit would just collapse, you know, including things that do stuff that are dependent upon him being wrong. You know, it's not possible that he's a misunderstood genius. It's not. And it's a really simple way to understand it. It's really that simple. But then after dealing with that, I saw Billy Carson, who's kind of almost the opposite. He's not an insane, delusional egomaniac like Howard. He is a liar and a fraud and a grifter, and I'll prove all of that stuff. But then I also found myself debunking the shit out of Professor Dave, because he apparently has not kept up with modern developments, like recent developments in science, and he's supposed to be the science guy. But he says a bunch of things that are patently wrong, like there's no field that can interact with our DNA and alter enzymes and proteins in a way that would, and yes, there is. Michael Levin has more than thoroughly proven it. How does he not know about this? It's not even that recent. And so the reason I haven't finished the video is that it's gotten so long from debunking Billy Carson and Professor Dave. It's just turning into this huge, huge project, but well worth it, because it really allows me to show simultaneously how much people are falling for these guys that don't actually study the things they talk about, like Carson, or they pretend not to know the answers to a lot of the questions that they pose, because it allows them to promote their dumbass theories, which are completely just, there's so many ways for me to show you how it's just none of it. It's embarrassing and sad, really. And it's really condescending to the fans of these people, because they're basically saying like that they know you're not going to check yourself. You're just going to listen to the crap coming out of their mouth, and you're not even going to bother to like check and validate any of it, which isn't even hard. I mean, it's 1 minute, Google it, and you'll see. It's pretty bad. So at any rate, you guys, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I will see you again on Sunday. I mean Saturday.